Hi, folks. This is Dr. Rob Cywes. I am the CarbAddictionDoc, and this is a piece of a little mini-series we're doing looking at some of the blood work that we do routinely in the office. And today I'm actually coming to you with information, with insights, with observations, but I don't have the answers. I've got questions, but I don't have the answers completely. I know what's happening, but I'm not sure of exactly how to interpret this and exactly what to do about it. We're still doing some experimental work with our patients to figure out what the best way is. But I'm not talking about now standard American diet patients. I'm talking about people who have been following a low carbohydrate way of life effectively. So mostly the authoritarians, not the permissives, but who have really categorically stayed away from sugar and starch, maybe even primarily carnivore, for longer than 2 years. So what we talk about, I've got Judy Cho actually introduced me to this term, and I've stolen it from her. I call it my veteran group, my veteran carnivores, my veteran keto people. These are people who are highly fat adapted, low insulins and low C-peptides at least at one time. And we track them, we track their blood work. So the beauty is we've got a series of blood work, often starting out with a standard American diet, going through fat adaptation over the course of a couple of years, and now having some numbers that are a bit concerning for me. And they're all eating a decent amount of protein, most of them. So let me look at this category. These folks, their BMIs are all under 25 typically, or they've lost massive amount of weight. So if their BMI are 25, they've lost over 100 pounds. So massive reduction in weight. None of them are diabetic. At least we're not diabetic. Come to that in a little bit. But they're all high protein eaters, high fat eaters. And that protein-fat ratio may vary a little bit. But the thing that we're starting to see with these folks, I look more and more at nitrogen metabolism. And nitrogen metabolism is indicative of what the human body does to amino acids, to protein. Okay? So when you eat protein, it can go one of two ways. It either goes toward tissue repair, toward tissue building, mostly muscle building, as a hormone, as an enzyme, all of those amino acid molecules, carrier molecules, enzymes, hormones, and then muscle building. That is what I call the nutritional arm. And there is every day a very specific amount that the human body requires of amino acids to go down that pathway. And some of those are essential, some of them are non-essential. The difference is essential amino acids have to be used as is. Non-essential ones can be interconverted. But the essential ones have to be eaten, they can't be converted. And all of those 2021 amino acids are very important on the nutritional side. When it comes to the other pathway is a caloric or an energy production pathway. And the human body has a number of systems that converts amino acids to sugar as primary uses as an energy, as creatine, as sugar, and then the excess, if it's not used immediately, can be turned to sugar and then be turned to fat, primarily in the liver. So it is the energy pathway, either for immediate utilization or for conversion and storage, because the human body has zero capacity to store amino acids, to store protein, to store nitrogen products as an energy reserve. Muscles are not an energy reserve. They are used as muscles. So we don't store excess protein. Arnold Schwarzenegger used his muscles. Well, I guess he's a bad example because of the roids. But bodybuilders use their muscles, produce their muscles. They're not there as a nutrient bank. They can be there in starvation. So the third pathway is where under starvation conditions, you do not only starvation conditions, but under normal protein turnover, this protein turnover pool, you break down your cells, and the protein in those cells can either be used as a nutrient source, as a fuel source, or can be discarded. So that protein turnover, that protein pool is happening all the time. And that protein pool can either be a net positive nitrogen balance, where you're adding nitrogen to the system, or a net negative nitrogen balance, where you're having to remove more nitrogen that's coming in. And that's based upon utilization as well as the amount of protein you eat. And here's an important focus fact, folks, it's not just about how much protein you eat in a 24-hour period. It's about how much you eat at any one time. Because if you eat a little bit of protein 4 times a day, the body handles that much better than if you eat a massive amount of protein once a day. Think that through. Think that through. And for some people, those OMAD diets, where they pig out on massive amounts of steak in one meal, even though they're physically active, that can be problematic in terms of what the body is capable of immediately doing with that massive excess. Take that same excess, spread it out over the day a little bit, maybe gets handled a little bit differently. So we're just trying to figure that out. But here's the concern for me. In the blood work that I do, we measure all of these things. So we measure the sugars, we measure the A1Cs, the blood sugars. We measure the lipids, because that excess protein gets turned to sugar and then gets turned to fat. We measure the liver functions, because it's in the liver that you produce sugar and you produce the fat in large part when you're converting protein. We measure the kidney function, the creatinine, and actually what we do is we measure the 3 sources of nitrogen, which is creatine to creatinine, uric acid, BUN, nitrogen, ammonia, and we measure uric acid. Those are the 3 waste disposal systems of nitrogen breakdown products by the human body. And each one of those in excess is indicative of harm. Uric acid elevation is associated with gout, uric acid crystals in joints, and kidney stones. BUN elevation is again a nitrogen problem, and uremia and azotemia are dangerous to the human body. And creatinine elevation is indicative typically of kidney dysfunction. And the question that I have is, in these veteran carnivores, when those numbers go up, when we see BUNs in the 30s and 40s, when we see creatinines above 1 to the 1.2 level, and when we see uric acid 7, 9, 10, all in the very abnormal range, and yet these people are this big, they're working out like crazy, is that a problem? And I believe it is, because what we're seeing simultaneously is we're seeing their triglyceride counts go up. We're seeing their HDL levels fall. Those are indicative of cardiovascular disease. We're seeing their blood sugars rise up. We're seeing them come out of ketosis. We're seeing their C-peptide going up slightly. At least in the standard American diet, that's not good biology. So the question is, in these veteran carnivores, in these veteran ketogenic people, who are eating tons of protein maybe once a day, eating a lot of organ meats, is that healthy? Organ meats definitely produce uric acid. And I have some real concerns about that. In part, you're dealing with a group of people who have no stored weight to give. BMIs are often 21, 22, 23. They're skinny, they're lean. They have no extra stored weight. So they're eating once a day. There's a 23-hour period where they're not consuming energy. And they've stored and distributed that energy. Now they have to use it, but they don't have adequate stores. They're often very active, not always. So they're burning through a lot of calories. And for those folks, when I start to see those numbers go off, the discussion we have is to change their protein-fat ratio and then to distribute their consumption more often through the day. Same amount, maybe a little bit less, but across the day so that you can handle the ebb and flow. I don't know exactly what the best methodology is. I've got a group right now of 122 minus 1, 121 veteran carnivores that have given me the permission to use their data, to use their numbers, to look at this. So I'm not sure what that means, but guess what, folks? If you don't look at uric acid, if you don't look at BUN, if you don't look at creatinine, if you don't look at all these numbers together, you're not going to see this. Get your blood work done by somebody who understands what they're looking at, because if they don't, they may be mistaken. I'm a carnivore myself. I'm primarily carnivore in my diet. Doesn't look like it, but I am. My son, my baby, my 10-month-old boy is primarily a carnivore. He's a 95, 98% carnivore. And I need to know what the best approach is to carnivore. Not that it's healthy or unhealthy. I'm very comfortable with that. But I need to know the best way of eating as a healthy carnivore. How much fish is okay to eat? How much organ meat is okay to eat? I need to know those things. How much eggs? How much cheese? Those are things that nobody can tell me. Nobody knows because they don't have that cohort of patients. We do, and we're working through that. And I'd love it if you could come to the table and say, hey, I want to contribute to this. I want to be part of this, part of the question asking, but also part of the solution. That's a population of folks that we have. And there's some variances within that. But there's so many similarities, and we're just starting to analyze our data to give us better information. I'm not saying carnivore is not right. I do it. It's me and my baby and my wife. But I want to know that it's safe, and I want to know that it's right. Not just because somebody on the internet said it was. So if you want to know where you are, if you want to know what's going on, if you want my thoughts on how to make this as healthy as it can possibly be, give me a shout, 561-517-0642. But most doctors don't do what we do. And certainly they don't have the experience and the skills of being able to analyze that and go forward. I am the Carb Addiction Doc. If there's value to this, if you want to support some of the work that we're doing, at least with our charitable organization, throw a few dollars at us, Patreon at CarbAddictionDoc. I'm not that involved on the Patreon, so if you're going to donate, it's going to be incoming. Same thing with our PayPal account. It's robert@jackschildren.com. Throw us a gift of a few dollars. It all goes to our charitable organization to support the kind of work we're doing. I hope this helps. I hope this raises questions. I don't have all the answers. But help us to ask the questions and find the answers. I am the Carb Addiction Doc. Take care.